There's a lot of people out there that use it, I think, as a way of building ego. For me, off the back of my last exit in 2022, I had 2 periods of really bad burnout in that process. And I had a pretty successful large 8-figure exit. And somebody said to me, look, you should be sharing some of these stories because it's not all glamorous. You don't talk about it from a rose-tinted lens. You're actually very honest with people about the kind of trade-off and the pain to become successful. And I thought, well, you know what, why not? We'll start sharing a few posts. So initially I was doing a few posts here and there and they would do okay and I get feedback. And then I started to notice that off the back of that, there was more alignment with my audience, but also more opportunity for me to open up commercial opportunities as well. And I thought that was really interesting. So I think the other thing that's become really apparent to me over the last few years is that business brands are much harder to build than ever. You know, demand gen is tough with AI the way it is and the way people are searching and interacting now. Having a brand and an authentic brand is really important for whatever you do. So I kind of lent into it and started posting every day. And then
before we dive into today's episode, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us grow and inspire more people on their journeys. Thank you. Hello, Luke. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Hi, Tomas. Thanks for having me.
So, Luke, I know that you've got a big brand, you achieved a lot, you've got multiple ventures, but in case there is still someone who doesn't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. So Luke Tobin, I'm a serial founder. I've had 3 exits and I now run two businesses. One's an investment firm called Tobin Capital and the other is a private equity and ancillary service business called Unusual Group.
And you also haven't mentioned that you started writing a book, right? If that's not a secret.
Yeah, I have signed the agreement the other day with Pan Macmillan, literally 3 days ago. So yeah, it's all very new. I'm very excited. It won't be out until sometime early 2027. So it's all a little bit hush at the moment with what the topic is. But yeah, I'll release more on that soon.
And I understand that you cannot talk about it as much, but is it something that you've been planning to do, you've been dreaming about, or did they approach you, or how did that happen?
Yeah, they approached me actually. It's kind of an interesting catalyst of this creator world that I found myself in now. You know, I've kind of stumbled into becoming a creator. I was very much an entrepreneur and a business person first, and then became a creator. Whereas a lot of creators you meet are creators first, then later become business people, which is quite fascinating, really. So yeah, from my perspective, you know, I think building a good audience has opened up lots of opportunities, and one of those is the book. So the publisher reached out and asked whether I had a book in me, and I said, well, actually, I've got 2 or 3 ideas, and they said, well, let's start with one, and stress tested it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I guess it's early question, but does it mean that we may get even more later on?
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. I think, look, you know, a lot of the topic of the book and the focus will be on how to leverage your own doubts, your own journey, your own kind of, your own story to your benefit, and really leverage the success metrics and the success methods that can get you there along the way. So yeah, there's a lot more that will come out later.
And how do you then find it, the process of writing? Because I know that you've got experience from writing your newsletter, for example, but I can imagine that writing a book, it must be a completely different story.
It's completely different, and writer's block is actually a thing. I try my best not to go anywhere near AI. So the only thing I used AI for was to help me with the table of contents at the start. I had lots of ideas around structure, what I wanted to say, and then I asked it to kind of help me layer it into chapters. Since then, I haven't opened AI deliberately. I think these days we're so used to using and working with a blend of AI and technology that actually you sit there for the first half an hour, it's quite hard. But I'm really enjoying it, like disconnecting, and I'm using a pen and paper and just writing, and it's actually really, really nice.
Feels a bit old school, doesn't it?
It does. I like it. And the bits that I don't scribble out or rip out or get frustrated with, I then type up later. And it's a nice process, really nice process.
And what's actually the process of writing like? Is it, for example, you've got set hours in the morning, during the day, set the days? Because as you said, you are not creative. Just, when you say be creative, it just doesn't happen like that. So what is it like for you?
Yeah, it's kind of all weird and wonderful times whenever I get, an inspiration or an idea. Could be late at night, could be in the morning, could be on a dog walk, could be in the shower, could be in the gym, any of those things. And then I just start writing or voice note myself and then later pick it up. So look, it's an iterative process, and I certainly probably am not nailing it. I'm sure there's probably good or bad that could help me. But I think, going through a bit of pain on the first one is what you're supposed to do. So I have to deliver the whole manuscript by the end of April to the publisher. So yeah, there's some work to do between now and then.
And if you can share a bit of behind the scenes information, when you say the whole manuscript, roughly what's the number of words or pages that we're talking about?
It's going to be about 85,000 words.
Do you know how many pages roughly it will be in the final book?
But it's 14 chapters. I don't know about final pages.
I assume it's like a kind of similar books around 300 pages or something.
Yeah, around that level. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Can we expect audio version as well?
Audio version, translated versions into different languages. Working with a publisher is great because, they guarantee, airport coverage, bookstore coverage, as
Mhm.
well as multiple translations. So yeah, no, it's exciting. I mean, look, it's all very new to me. Literally 3 days. So yeah. But I'm very excited.
And then, because I'm pretty sure that you've read many books before and throughout your career, so what were some of the books that have been impactful on your journey to you?
Oh, wow. So many. I mean, actually, I've got a talk on this in a couple of days' time. I listen to a lot of audiobooks these days. So actually sitting and digesting content, it seems to be my favorite way. I can be on the move, can be in the gym or whatever. And there's been a few. I've been going quite deep on investing lately. So The Psychology of Money stands out. It's a really interesting book about understanding, how and why we have certain biases and we make certain impulse decisions when it comes to investing. But if I look back over the last couple of years, anything from Atomic Habits to Psychocybermetrics, like I probably digest, I don't know, 2 books, 3 books a month, something like that. So yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah, sounds like great picks for sure. And I like what you mentioned before that you've got kind of temptation to use AI because it's part of our lives. I would recommend one thing to the audience is to actually have a look at Luke's website, because although we haven't spoken with Luke yet, I think there's one pretty cool feature that makes you feel like that we've spoken already. Do you know, Luke, what I'm talking about?
I do. So I used an LLM for Luke Tobin AI, and it's actually, it took resource wise, like archive wise and articles wise, nearly 300 videos, all of my ebooks, all of my newsletters, a lot of like written and verbal and video content to train the model. But I actually
Mhm.
think, scarily, I work with quite a few clients and they use Luke Tobin AI as part of that cadence when I'm not around. And sometimes
Yeah.
the answer's better, than I come up with on it. So it works. It works well. The feedback's been excellent. And I've even kind of teased myself a few times when I thought of a thing. I thought, well, actually, I'll ask the AI to see if it thinks similar. And it's never too far off. In fact, quite often more concise than I would be. So yeah, no, I think it's good.
I think it's a really smart idea. Was it your idea to develop something like this?
So Bot Dojo, the developers, approached me actually from a creative point of view, and we got talking. And I loved what they were doing. They're like a boutique LLM factory, and I said, look, why don't we partner up and build something that's a bit different? Most creators copycat each other, but most of them don't have the ability to create an AI. So let's do it. Let's be one of the
Mm,
first to produce an AI, which was cool. And finally something I've done ahead of some of the big creators, which I enjoyed.
it is true. And I'm sure that I think you kind of answer it, but in case people are still wondering, why should I use Luke AI instead of other LLMs like, ChatGPT and others? So in case someone still has these questions, what would you answer to them?
Yeah, so it's the tailored approach. So my background, having built and sold multiple businesses, is the focus that we've got for Luke Tobin AI is very much that co-founder piece. I've interviewed hundreds of founders, and everybody has these kind of periods of burnout, these periods of hitting glass ceilings, not really knowing how to smash through them. And having kind of crawled my way through those multiple times with lots of different teams, going in and having a dedicated co-pilot AI that is coming at it from that lens and that viewpoint, not distracted
Mhm.
with too generalist information, I think is really powerful. And certainly the feedback that we've had, so far we've had almost 4,000 users, and the feedback has been, phenomenal. The star ratings are nearly 5 star, and we're getting some fantastic reviews. So yeah, it's certainly worth playing with, and it's completely free to use. So why not test it? A
Yeah.
good test would be to test it against GPT to see what you get. Yeah.
I was going to say that too, that it's for free, it's 24/7. So, in case anyone has any doubts, firstly, have a look at the website because you've got questions and answers. So, it gives you the answers, but at the same time, give it a try because it's for free. So, why not, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Nothing mentioned, nothing gained.
That is true. And I like what you said, Luke, before when we discussed kind of content creation and entrepreneurship, that you are someone who's a successful entrepreneur and then you became a content creator and you've amassed large audience. But in the first place, why did you actually decide to become a content creator?
It's a good question, and one I ask myself on the daily. Actually, it's world, the creator space. There's a lot of bravado. There's a lot of people out there that use it, I think, as a way of building ego. For
Mm.
me, off the back of my last exit in 2022, I genuinely I had 2 periods of really bad burnout in that process, and I had a pretty successful large 8-figure exit. And somebody said to me, "Look, you should be sharing some of these stories because it's not all glamorous. You're not, you don't talk about it from a rose tinted lens. You're actually very honest with people about the kind of trade off and the pain to become successful." And I thought, well, you know what? Why not? We'll start sharing a few posts. So initially, I was doing a few posts here and there, and they would do okay, and I get feedback, and then I started to notice that off the back of that, there was more alignment with my audience, but also more opportunity for me to open up commercial opportunities as well. And I thought that was really interesting. So I think the other thing that's become really apparent to me over the last few years is that business brands are much harder to build than ever. Demand gen is tough with AI the way it is and the way people are searching and interacting now. Having a brand and an authentic brand is really important for whatever you do. So I kind of lent into it and started posting every day, and then started with LinkedIn, and that's growing fairly successfully. Then leaned into Instagram, and that grew faster, which is great. And then touched on all of the others. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm 18 months into posting every day on these channels, and I think 18 months ago I had collectively like 20,000 followers, and I think today we have nearly 800,000. So
Yeah, it's crazy if you think about such a number. I believe on LinkedIn it's 150. You've
yeah,
got a lot on Instagram as well, and impressive on newsletter too.
yeah, X, YouTube, all of them. We're growing gradually, and it starts to produce, which I didn't expect. It's like a nice catalyst of it. It starts to produce revenue as well. Sponsorships,
Mhm.
opportunities. Yeah.
And I think also very beautiful thing that happens is the positive impact that you've got.
Yes, well, that's the main thing, right? So, the newsletter, the success method, I try to really share frameworks and things that have worked for me, like actionable insights. I think a lot of the creators or the information you get out there are just very one-sided. It's like, well, here's the solution, but without any of the background or any of the framework or any of the knowledge on how do you actually take that and do something with it. So I try
Mhm.
to be very practical in what I put out.
I think what's important to mention is, for example, these days, anyone can find information in, I don't know, with AI, Google, or anything, but you're actually someone who's got a rich track record and career and everything. So it's actually speaking of experience and not just pulling information from ChatGPT or something.
Exactly, exactly. That's the thing. I think I always say to people, do your research on creators and business people to make sure they actually can back up what they're saying. A lot of people sit doom scrolling on social media, and I feel like very responsible for this. If people are consuming my content, I want them to actually know that it's backed up by someone that's actually been there and done it. But a lot of people get jealous. They worry about comparing themselves to others. But a lot of those people that they're comparing themselves to have just built a following. They actually have got no substance behind it, and that's something people need to be careful about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also a great point that you mentioned is not talking only about highs and successes, but you openly talk about failures, failed exits. You mentioned burnout before. So are you actually someone who's always been open about this? Because obviously it's not easy to share this type of thing. So what is it like for you?
I think, look, at the end of the day, I don't never want to be anything but authentic. So I think, sharing those things is important. And also, if I can just help one or two or however many people avoid some of those experiences that I went through by sharing content, I think it's great. And if I can support and help more than that, then that's amazing. So yeah,
Mhm.
I've always been very open and transparent about it. In my book, I'm going to be extremely open and transparent about all of those areas of burnout, the self-doubt, the questioning myself. I think people go through different forms of doubt at different stages in their lives, and they go through different forms of imposter syndrome and all of those things. And I think it's a really important narrative to understand that actually that's okay. It's what you do with it and how you learn from it and how you leverage it that matters.
I'm very happy that you share it because, for example, when you open social media, whether it's LinkedIn or other channels, you can see people, posting about clients, how much money they made, deals they closed. But when there's actually someone who also speaks about failures, imposter syndrome, burnout, things like all of us at some point experience, it just stands out and it's more authentic. So I'm glad that there is someone even bigger and successful like you that talks about it.
Yeah, it's important to just be honest, right? Nothing in life that's worth having is ever easy. And anybody that tries to make you feel like things are easy have either got really lucky or they're lying.
Yeah, that is true. Are you struggling to stay consistent on LinkedIn? Pen Post helps you create high quality posts in minutes, so you can write faster, show up more, and stress way less. Built by creators for creators. It's the easiest way to grow your presence without burning out. Try it free at fanpost.com. And we discussed a lot already, so I'm sure that people must be asking, how do you manage to do so many things and on such a high level? Which is actually something I'm curious about too, whether it's your businesses, social media. Now you are writing the book, so what is your secret?
The secret is great people. So hiring really good people around me to help me. I've tried before to stack too much on my shoulders and that never ends well. That's when I've had those burnout periods and just not enjoyed myself, not enjoyed the journey. And I think I'd rather take a little bit less money or a slower pace these days, slightly slower than maybe I would have historically, to do things in a sustainable way. So great people is the answer. I hire people that are better than me at some of these things and get them to support me. That's the key.
I think it's important to be real and realize that we are not the best at everything, and there are actually people who are better in certain things we are, and it might be beneficial to work with them.
100%. Look, I'm sure there's people that are better than me at most things. It's just about being able to leverage and work with them and hopefully be the glue that supports them and brings the best out in those individuals as well.
Mhm. But I'm sure that when you do things kind of on your own, that first step actually to hire someone and delegate things, it might be hard at first. So, what was it like for you? And in case there are people who are either at this stage or are going to be at such a stage, what would you advise them or recommend to them?
It is hard. And I think, as a founder, one of your biggest bits of responsibility is to hire the right people. Those first early people become your tribe. They're like the people that believe what you believe. And I always think the founder almost sits at the center of a whirlwind and you start
Yep.
creating this energy. And along the way, you pull in other people that create a wider cyclone and you continue that, continue that. At some stage, you need those people to break off and continue to build. So it's not just all on you. So yeah, make sure you really take the time to find those individuals, incentivize them in a way that gives them a sense of ownership as well. I always think that's really important. So, key personnel, if that's shares, is it, profit share? Is it, what is
Yeah.
it? But really think about like, how do you align interests with them so that they have skin in the game? And, I tend to find that people want to overexceed.
Yeah, and build trust with them and actually trust those people because it takes time to build, but it's worth it.
It does. One of the hardest things as a founder is to let go. And I think the sooner you can do it, actually, the better for your own sanity, but also for the individuals, right? Most people want to feel a sense of accomplishment. They want to feel a sense of ownership. So give them room to breathe.
I agree. And I think another important part is your family life look, because as I read about yourself, is that on top of everything, it's also important to actually enjoy yourself and time with the family. So, as we discussed now with delegation and everything, how do you make sure to actually protect time with your closest ones as well? It's easy to say, but I can imagine it must be hard to do sometimes.
Very hard to do. I have to be honest, I've not always got that part right. So, even now I just launched this new business again and I'm stood or sat at this desk too many hours at the moment. And it is one of those things. But I have a very supportive, fiance, and we're fortunate in the sense that, we've got a little dog that is very happy being around our feet all day. My partner works really hard as well, so that does give me a little bit of kind of freedom. But yeah, it is a difficult balance. I think the key to, again, avoiding too much burnout or overstretching yourself, because I do believe at the start of a business as well, when you're building something, there's no substitute for hard work. So you've got to work hard, you've got to, I mean, you've got to do the effort, but always remember to try and, yeah, remember that you are still a human. And at the end of the day, the work will always be there. There'll always be something more to do. Protect and ring fence your time.
Yeah, I agree, and I like it. And as you mentioned the dog, I think actually it's a great idea because you post photos on LinkedIn with your dog. And as we discussed authenticity before, I really like that you post photos like this. Not only, of course, I like dogs as everyone else, but it actually shows the human side. There's, for example, not Luke as speaking on stage or entrepreneur or something, but it's actually Luke with the dogs, which shows personal side.
Yeah, yeah. No, she's great. I mean, she's the star of the show for sure, Harper. No, she's brilliant.
And what are some of the activities or the things that you do outside of work, maybe outside of family life when you want to switch off? What are some of your hobbies?
Yeah, I love to travel. I go to the gym quite regularly, so gym is kind of a sanctuary for me. If I didn't do that, I'd feel pretty rubbish. Yeah, a lot of travel. I mean, as I've got older, good kind of, even this sounds really basic, but I love to go on hikes and long walks and get out in nature as much as I can, try and escape the
Mhm.
screen, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of travel, what's your favorite place you visited, and what's place that is still on your travel list that you want to visit?
Well, interesting. In April this year, I moved to Portugal. So I now live in a place called Cascais, which is near Lisbon. It's beautiful. And even today, which is unusual for me being a Brit, it is the 20th of November and it is bloody sunny outside. It's so
Oh, really? Oh my.
t-shirt it's on, like it's unbelievable. So this is a whole new thing for me. But favorite place, I mean, I've traveled a lot. I love so many different places for different reasons. Southeast Asia has a special place in my heart for those backpacking years. I lived in Australia for a few years. I like North America for its kind of size and craziness. Yeah, so many different things. I mean, yeah, travel is my. As soon as you get the travel bug, I think it never goes. So,
That is true. And what's then the place that is still on your travel list?
oh, I've been to Brazil, but I'd like to do a bit more South America. I'd like to go down to Argentina. I'd also like to spend a bit more time traveling Brazil. I only did Sao Paulo and a bit of the South Africa. So my grandma was born in South Africa, in Durban. I need to get over. I've got some employees there as well, so that's on my hit list this year. Actually, well, start of next year. So yeah, no, that look, there's loads. If I could see everywhere before I die, I'd be extremely grateful, or at least as many as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And when you travel, are you actually able to switch off from work, or do you work kind of as a digital nomad still on the go?
Yeah, most of the time I would still be doing something. Yeah, even if it's just checking in with my teams or whatever. But I do try to make sure at least once a year I have like a proper break and, go somewhere where I can just leave my phone for the day. And it's difficult. If you run your own businesses, you are going to check. And I'm an investor in a lot of companies, public listed and not listed.
Yeah.
So I do find myself, as a bit of a hobby, checking markets, like whatever. I also find it quite enjoyable, maybe not on
Mhm.
terrible correction days, but generally I find it quite enjoyable as well. And, so yeah, I try to get as much downtime as I can, but I would be lying if I said I don't check and do the odd bit here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's still great that you find time to travel even with this despite busy schedule. And you mentioned before, look, that you also write a newsletter. And of course, there are many newsletters out there, but to tease it somehow and market for people, what is your newsletter about? And tell us just more about it because I think it's a great newsletter. Also on the website, you provide some very helpful resources. So can you tell us more about your newsletter?
Yeah, of course. So it's called the success method. I believe that, having been through these three exits and four failures, by the way, four failed exits, I've tried to reverse engineer and go back and kind of hack what worked and what didn't work. And then I built this 100-part framework, basically, which is the success method of like how you can build, scale, and exit a company. But outside of that, I've also tried to then put in some principles about life and, how you can leverage doubt, how you can look at yourself and your own personality, and also being very understanding that not everybody is the same, and that's okay as well. Like, things can be different, and not everybody should go on and be an entrepreneur. Not everybody
Yeah.
should go, and that's absolutely fine. Not everyone should be a creator, although it feels like the whole world is trying to be.
That is true.
So true. So, basically, it unearths and challenges the status quo around some of those principles and those ways of thinking. And we share weekly insights and frameworks, books of the week, like different ways that you could train and nurture yourself. We always share PDF downloads, which I've created or written. And then if you go to the website, the luketobin.com website, on there you find lots of free resources you can download as well, and obviously access to the free AI. So I try to give as much away as I can. I don't really charge for anything unless people work with me directly through consulting.
Yeah. And I can also imagine that experience with writing a newsletter has been kind of a great preparation for book writing now. Although it's obviously kind of different, but still definitely helped, didn't it?
It's definitely helped. Yeah. Yeah. I think just the discipline of sitting down and having to write that each week is definitely useful. And I think sometimes you don't know what you know until you teach. And actually, I think that's really, it's actually when you sit and you think about, actually, how can I get this story or this narrative over in a way that's going to be easy for somebody to digest and take them
Yeah.
5 minutes to try and understand and move on. Because let's be honest, we're all getting bombarded with newsletters, chasing our attention. So if we can try and make it as concise as possible, 3 or 4 minute read, that's what I try and do.
That is true. There are things that you know that are kind of automatic and simple for you, but then try to explain it to someone who has no idea or never heard of it. So I completely agree.
Yeah, nice, good.
Then, Luke, what are some of, obviously we discussed the book, all that you're working on, but still, have you got any plans for the future? If you manage to squeeze into your time, any upcoming projects or anything that the audience can be expecting?
Yeah, so I just launched 2 months ago Unusual Group. An Unusual Group is effectively an investment vehicle to invest in creative-led businesses. So if we look at the creative world at the moment, it is going through seismic change because of AI. So think about agencies, marketing, creative branding, sales agencies. They're all panicking. I've spoke to maybe 120 agency owners in the last couple of months. All of them are like, what do we do? How do we become tech enabled? How do we leverage the opportunity but not get completely pushed out of the market? So helping them with positioning, but also giving them some growth capital where needed to help them scale and bring in the right discipline. In my last exit, I saw that there was a really tried and tested method for scaling these service-based businesses. And even with the world changing a bit and the creative industry becoming tougher, there is still ways of making it work for you. And I believe that, we can add a lot of value. So we launched, just over 2 months ago. We now have 8 agencies already that we've invested in, that are our partners, that we're growing. We have ambition to grow that to about 50 agencies in the next few years. And then we'll look to do some sort of collective exit at that stage, or continue to incubate great agencies and sell them. Only 4% of agencies ever sell, which is a scary statistic. And out of that, 50% sell in distress because they're either burnt out, they're at a point where they're retiring, or they just have run out of steam, whatever it is, or the business is struggling. We want to reverse that for our agencies and make sure they have a sustainable exit and outcome.
Yeah. I was actually about to ask, why did you decide to start it? Which is great what you said. And also before, when I was doing a bit more research about yourself, there was no Unusual Group back then. Then I did research. A few months after, I saw Unusual Group. And a few days ago, I saw the book. So I was waiting. If I wait like a few more months, what else is going to appear on Luke's profile?
That's good.
Yeah. And then, Luke, just to be aware of time, can you please, of course, we discussed it, but can you summarize where people can find you, follow you, and promote any of your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just one of the product that's worth mentioning is Mirth. So we've launched a small scale at the moment, but a product in the US market called drinkmirth.com. And it's a really beautiful carbonated water drink that has 87 different properties in it, from probiotics, prebiotics, all of your kind of vitamins and minerals that you need. And we analyze the entire US market, of which 98% of all fizzy drinks on the market are full of E numbers and full of crap. So we've basically created something that is extremely good for you, even against all the water alternatives that are often dressed up as water, but you go look at the sugar content or, the flavorings that they put in and they are just so bad for you. So yeah, definitely love checking that out. But outside of that, you can find my website, which is luketobin.com, or Luke Tobin on all of the main social networks.
Mhm. And as always, I will add any links to the show notes. And look, what is it actually that still, let's say, motivates you? That you still keep pushing, creating new things because you already achieved a lot. But as we discussed, new things keep appearing. So what is it that drives you, pushes you, and is your motivation?
I think I'm a sucker for punishment, obviously. Um, honestly, my fiance says that to me all the time. I just think I get a lot of my purpose and my reason for being out of creating things. I love building stuff and I love trying to solve problems. And,
Mhm.
the unusual group's a good example. Right now, most people are running away from the creative service business in the
Yeah.
industry. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go in and run into it and see if we can help. So yeah, I like trying to solve problems. And I think, what else would I be doing? I'd be sat bored, you know. You can only go to the gym so many times a day. You can only go to the beach so many times. Like, I'd rather make an impact. So
That is very true, and I like that mindset and thinking. And actually, the question that I wanted to ask you in the beginning and did not ask you is, what did you want to become when you were younger? Did you expect for yourself a career like this, or what did you want to become?
so I had this period where I wanted to be an actor, and then I
Oh,
realized,
I wasn't expecting that one.
yeah, it's a bit. I think I was pretty good when I was younger. I was in like the National Youth Theatre and did some plays, and then I went to drama college and enjoyed that. Then realized very quickly that it wasn't for me. So came out of it and then took a gap year. Wasn't sure what direction to go, and then just fell in love with everything kind of business and commercial. And I've always been entrepreneurial, so I think I grew up in a household where my dad was always very entrepreneurial as well. I think it just encouraged me. But yeah, I left home early, 16, and kind of fended for myself. And I think just having that drive, I realized entrepreneurship was a way that you could achieve outsized returns if you did it well. And that's what I wanted to do.
And who are some of your, let's say, like inspirations or motivations from entrepreneurial world, such as any business people or people that you just look up to?
Yeah, I think growing up, I always had I was always impressed with Richard Branson. I think that's showing my age now, probably. I mean, there's so many now. I think it's really, from a personal brand perspective, taking it back to creator side, I think it's amazing how the big CEOs of all the main businesses that you can think of, whether it's, Amazon or Apple or all the big tech companies, have built these huge personas alongside the businesses. You almost know the CEOs more than you know the businesses, and
Yeah.
I've always found that really fascinating as well. Like, they've been doing that for years before anybody thought about what personal brand was. They've been doing it, and I think that's inspirational. And I think that's
Mhm.
given me a bit of a drive to keep pushing on the branding side.
Yep, yeah, I like it. And as you mentioned that you wanted to become actor, then I'm curious to ask you, what's your actually favorite movie?
Oh, now you're testing. It's really difficult. I mean, if I go kind of old school a little bit, Pulp Fiction,
Oh,
Godfather,
Quentin Tarantino.
amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, probably one of those two, I would say.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah.
I like it. And then Luke, before we finish, is there anything you would like to share with the audience? Are there any questions that I should have asked you and did not, or anything to finish with?
Great question. I think we've covered everything extensively. And, I think if anybody has direct questions or they want to reach out, feel free to DM me under Luke Tobin channels or drop me a note. I mean, I read all of the messages that come back in response to the newsletter, often respond to people with questions
Mhm.
or specific concerns that they have or things that they're trying to challenge and work through. So yeah, reach out that way would be great.
Or I would encourage people to go talk to Luke Tobin AI.
Yeah, do that. Go and check it out. Try and break it. See how far you can get, and let me know. Again, feedback is so critical. So yeah, I'm always open.
And it's amazing resource, of course, because it's for free and it's very helpful. So look, then I want to say a huge thank you because I really appreciate your time. As I've been following you for a long time, I really enjoy your content. I enjoyed our conversation. So once again, thank you, and I will be very excited to see your book when I'm at the airport. and I'm checking one of the stores and I see your book there. So thank you for your time, Luke, and wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Produced by with Tobin. Check the show notes for all the links, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your feedback. Speak soon.